Hello guys, today we will begin our unit on triangles. Today we will be classifying triangles. Students will be able to define the properties of a triangle, review essential vocabulary about triangles, classify triangles by its sides and angles. Important vocabulary. Angle is a figure formed by two rays called the sides of the angle sharing a common endpoint called the vertex of the angle. Vertex. A vertex is a special point of a mathematical object and is usually a location where two or more lines or edges meet. Measure. Mathematical function which associates a comparable numeric value to some subset of a given set. In this situation, the measure will be in degrees. Congruent. Identical in form, for example, same side, same angle, or same value. What is a triangle? A triangle is a closed shape with three sides and three angles. The sum of the measures of the three interior angles must equal 180 degrees. Triangles can be classified by its sides and angles. Let's take a look at the 6 different triangles. Notice the first 3 types of triangles are classified by angles, and then the last 3 are classified by sides. So let's begin. The first one we're going to talk about is an acute triangle. In an acute triangle, each angle must measure less than 90 degrees. Now if you notice to the right, if you look at the drawing, when I'm referring to the angles, here's the first angle, second, and third, and each one of those angles must be less than 90 degrees for it to be an acute triangle. Let's move on to a right triangle. And a right triangle, one of the angles must measure exactly 90 degrees. Now if we look to the right at the drawing, here's the 90-degree angle. The next is an obtuse triangle, and one angle must measure more than 90 degrees. So only one of them must be greater than 90 degrees. And if you look to the right, here's the drawing, and here's the obtuse angle. Now the next type of triangle is a scalene triangle. And with a scalene triangle, no sides are congruent, which basically means none of the sides are the same. And the way I like to remember scalene, the first few letters make the word scale. And if I was to bring a scale to the classroom and we were to take each other's weight, I don't think any of us would have the same exact weight. So we'd all be different. So that's how I remember scalene. Now if you look to the right, when you're classifying by sides, then there would be hashes, and because none of the sides are the same, then none of the hashes or none of the tick marks would be the same. So that one might have 1, this one might have 2, and this side might have 3, to show that none of the sides are congruent. Let's move on to isosceles triangles. And within isosceles triangles, 2 sides are congruent. So 2 sides do have to be the same. And the way I like to remember is isosceles is we have 2 eyes, and isosceles sounds like the word eyes, and that's how I remember. 2 eyes, 2 sides are congruent. And if you look at the drawing, there's 2 tick marks, and that represents or indicates that those 2 sides are congruent. Now let's move on to an equilateral triangle. An equilateral triangle, if you notice, equal sounds like equal. So there all sides are congruent. And if you look at the drawing of the triangle, each side has 1 tick mark, and that indicates that all the sides are congruent. You can also have an equiangular triangle, and that says all the angles are congruent. Something else you need to know about triangles. If for some reason you need to find the measure of an unknown angle, you need to follow these steps. So let's look at the triangle that is given and let's see what was given. If you notice, I see there's a 57 and a 64, so the measure of this angle is 57. The measure of this angle is 64, so it's different. So I'm going to do 2 hashes to represent that it's different. So basically what we need to do is we need to find the angle of, or the value of x. And I know that's going to be different based because I've worked the problem, so let's see how it's different. What you would do is add the given measurements and then subtract from 180, since there's 180 degrees in a triangle. So 57 plus 64 equals 121, and then 180 minus 121 gives you 59. So the missing angle is 59 degrees. So the value of x would be 59. And then 59 is different than 57 and is different than 64. So I know that it's a scalene triangle. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Now it is your turn to find the missing angles and classify it. So what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video. You have the worksheet, and I want you to work examples 1 through 7. And then once you're ready to check your work, resume the video and let's see how you did. Okay, I'm glad to see that you guys are back, and let's get ready to check some answers. Okay, so here's example number 1. You were asked to find the value of x and classify the triangle. So let's see how you guys did. The sum of the 3 interior angles should add up to be 180 degrees. So 39 plus 124 equals 163. So then you take 180 minus 163, and that equals 17. Therefore, the value of x is 17 degrees. So this would be 17 degrees here. And if you notice, none of the angles are correct, or sorry, not correct, the same, which lets me know that none of the sides are going to be the same. So then I'm going to go ahead and draw 1 line here, 2 here, and 3 here to show that they're different. And then I do see right here, because we have 124, we have this measure is greater than 90, it's 124, then we have an obtuse triangle, and because none of the angles are the same, therefore none of the sides are the same, it's a scalene obtuse triangle. Let's see how you guys did on example number 2. Example number 2, you're asked to classify these 3 triangles. So if you notice, for triangle E, the side lengths were given, and all the side lengths are the same. They're 6. For K, they didn't give you any exact measures or side lengths, but they gave you the little tick marks, which basically they're telling you that all the sides are congruent. And then for A, if you notice, all the 3 angles are congruent because they each have 1 line. So you should have classified this as an equilateral equiangular triangle. Both the sides and the angles are the same. Okay, let's move on to example number 3. Example number 3, you were asked to classify the 2 triangles. So if you notice, let's start off with triangle I. I see it has a 90-degree angle, and I see the other 2 angles have 1 line, which tells me that these 2 angles are congruent. So you're going to have 2 angles that are the same, and then 1 90-degree angle. Let's move on to triangle B. Triangle B does give you the measures, so 45, 45. You have 2 angles that are congruent, and then you have a 90-degree angle, so that tells me both triangles are isosceles right triangles. So remember, isosceles means 2 sides are congruent or 2 angles are congruent, and then right means it at least has 1 90-degree angle. Let's move on to example number 4. Example number 4, you asked to classify the 3 triangles. So let's see. Let's start off with triangle P. Triangle P has the side lengths given. So you were given the side length of 7, 8, and 9. All the side lengths are different. So I think it would be scalene. Let's move on to triangle F. 55, 35, and 90. You were given the three measures of the three interior angles, and they're all different. So once again, scalene, but I do see a right triangle. And then I move on to, let's look at triangle Q. So you have a 90 degrees, a 20 degrees, and then the other one was not given. I just did 90 plus 20 and then subtracted that total from 180, and that gave me 70. So if you guys notice, in all three triangles, you have a 90-degree angle, and none of the angles are congruent. So all three triangles are scalene right triangles. Let's move on to example number 5. Example number 5, you're giving three triangles. So let's start off with G. For G, you were given two angles, so 70 and 70, and then the third one was missing. So right away you should see two congruent angles, two congruent sides. That's isosceles. And then if you look to the left, triangle N, it has two tick marks, which is telling you that those two sides are congruent, and therefore those two angles are congruent as well. And let's look at triangle D. They do give you the measure of two of the interior angles, and because they each have one line, they're telling you they're congruent. So if we go back to triangle G, I did find that missing angle, so basically I added 70 plus 70, and that gave me 140, subtracted that from 180, and that missing angle was 40. So because that third angle was different, then I can say that it's definitely isosceles, and because 70 is less than 90, then all three triangles are isosceles acute triangles. Let's move on to example number 6. Example number 6 is to classify the three triangles. Okay, let's look at J. They gave us an angle of 95. Now that tells me right away 95 is greater than 90. So here's an obtuse angle, and the other two are acute. They must be acute, but they're also congruent. Then if I move on to R, here's 110. That angle is definitely greater than 90, so that must be obtuse. And then I move on to triangle M. I added 44 plus 44, subtract that from 180, and gave me 92. So once again here we have another obtuse angle. Now that definitely tells me it's going to be obtuse. Now let's look at the other angles that were given. There in each triangle, the other two sides or two angles are congruent. So the three triangles will be obtuse, isosceles. Okay, and then let's move on to example number 7. Example number 7, you were just given two triangles, and for L, the side lanes were given, so 5, 6, 7. All the side lanes are different, so I'm leaning towards scalene. And so let's look at H, 59 and 60. If you add those two and subtract the sum from 180, you get 61. So what I'm seeing right now, none of the angles are the same, congruent. So that's going to tell me it's scalene. And let's look at the angles. Are they less than 90, greater than, or equal to? And they all three for triangle H are less than 90. So both triangles are scalene acute triangles. Scalene, no, the sides are the same. Acute, the angles are less than 90. Okay, now here's your exit ticket. Now that you know the definitions and have seen them, try drawing them on your own. So on your own, draw one obtuse triangle, draw one right triangle, one equilateral triangle, one scalene triangle, one isosceles, and one acute. If you guys have any questions, feel free to look back and replay the video, go back to a specific part. If you don't have any questions, I hope you learned or you enjoyed learning about classifying triangles. Thanks for watching.